Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Azam Khan. Here a look at tonight's top stories. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky secures fresh U.S. military aid while denying Bakhmut has fallen into Moscow's hands. Hong Kong Business Chamber calls on government to do more to tackle the brain drain. And Manchester City are crowned English champions, even before they play Chelsea tonight. U.S. President Joe Biden has unveiled a fresh round of military aid for Ukraine as he met Volodymyr Zelensky at the G7 summit in Japan. Kyiv also insisted the city of Bakhmut remains in Ukraine's control after Zelensky suggested it had fallen. Meeting on the sidelines of the Group of Seven summit in Hiroshima, U.S. President Joe Biden revealed to his Ukrainian counterpart another package of military aid.
A package that includes more ammunition, artillery, armored vehicles to bolster Ukraine's battlefield abilities. And the United States continues to help Ukraine respond, recover, and rebuild.
The latest package, worth $375 million, takes Washington's financial commitment to Ukraine past $37 billion. As Volodymyr Zelensky made a surprise visit to Japan and pleaded for more support from developed nations, his soldiers may have suffered a setback at home. Russian mercenary group Wagner, which is employed by the Kremlin, has declared victory in Bakhmut. The battle in the eastern city has raged for 8 months, the longest and likely the bloodiest of the war so far.
Mr. President, President Zelensky, is Bakhmut still in Ukraine's hands? The Russians say they've taken Bakhmut.
I think no, but you have to understand that there is nothing. They destroyed everything. There are no buildings. It's a pity, it's tragedy, but for today, Bakhmut is only in our hearts. There is nothing.
A spokesperson for Zelensky's office later clarified that the president was not saying Bakhmut had fallen. The Ukrainian deputy defense minister later claimed on Telegram that Russia has failed to surround the city. Before flying home and wrapping up his whirlwind diplomatic trip, Zelensky paid a visit to a memorial park in Hiroshima, which honored the victims of a nuclear attack in the Second World War. He shared a moment of solidarity with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida as they laid flowers at a monument. Back locally, the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce says the government must do more to address a severe manpower shortage. Chief Executive George Leung also believes bumping up salary alone won't help businesses retain staff. Macy Mock reports.
With Hong Kong's labor force shrinking by 140,000 people in the past 2 years, businesses are desperate to retain staff and stem the brain drain. But the city's leading business group says bumping up salary is a bad idea. Speaking on radio, Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce Chief Executive George Leung pointed out that with a low unemployment rate, increasing pay would hurt charity groups who cannot compete with their commercial counterparts. He added most of those who emigrated overseas were middle management workers, and their departure has crippled operations. One solution, he said, is to source talent from the mainland, and he urged the public to embrace the reality.
We needed to have a more open attitude towards importing of talent. Eventually, if the economy is being stacked because of not having enough talent, everyone will suffer.
Leung noted there are plenty of entry and middle-level workers across the border, especially in innovative industries. He also welcomed the government's move to expand the talent list so that more professionals can enjoy streamlined visa applications to the city. But there is still more to be done.
And also to promote outside Hong Kong, to let more people knowing about the Hong Kong advantage and Hong Kong, the situation, providing some sort of career matching so that to attract those people coming in Hong Kong.
On the bright side, Leung noted Hong Kong's economy is recovering steadily after 3 years of COVID. He expects domestic consumption to prosper in the second half of the year, but exports may continue to struggle due to a looming economic downturn in the United States and sluggish growth on the mainland. That said, the chamber believes Hong Kong's GDP will grow by 3.8% this year. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
A 54-year-old woman was allegedly murdered in Yoon Long last night, not far from where she lived. A blood-stained electric saw was found at the scene, and police are still looking for the suspect. Here's Maisie Mock again.
Police rushed to a remote area in Yoon Long after receiving a report at around 7:30 p.m. last night that a woman was found lying in a pool of blood. By the time emergency workers arrived at Kam Pok Road East, it was already too late. The woman sustained multiple injuries, including cut wounds to her neck and back, while her face was severely disfigured. She was certified dead at the scene, while a cap and a mobile phone were found next to her body. Reports suggested the 54-year-old, surnamed Lau, was a resident of a nearby village. Police officers combed through the area, which sits east of Campton River and scattered with low-rise industrial buildings and village houses. They made multiple discoveries in the bush not far from the crime scene, including an electric saw with bloodstains, as well as a 30-centimeter long carving knife and a pair of gloves. The force have classified the case as murder. Lau's body was taken to a mortuary for a post-mortem examination early this morning. Officers from Yoon Long District are still piecing together details, but no one has been arrested so far. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Traffic was smooth along Shing Mun Tunnel. On the first day, an electronic toll system was put in place. The thoroughfare connecting Sha Tin and Chun Wan is the second road link to employ the government's e-toll system, following Chingsha Highway earlier this month. The system began operation at 5 a.m., following minor modifications to the toll booths overnight. Signage has been installed along the tunnel to remind motorists not to stop to pay tolls. Another conversion will be conducted at Lion Rock Tunnel next Sunday, followed by the Cross Harbor tunnels later this year. Going back to our coverage of the G7 summit, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said he supports maintaining the status quo in the Taiwan Strait and that he plans to initiate dialogue with Beijing with a visit to China.
We have said for some time that China's activity, and we've expressed concern for ourselves as well, the strafing of one of our aircraft. The other activity that we've seen has provided concern. We've expressed that concern in the past. We'll continue to do so. What we need to do is to make sure that we work in a way that enhances peace, security and stability in the region. We very clearly support the status quo when it comes to the Taiwan Straits, and that is Australia's position. We've consistently stated it.
Taking a tougher tone than his counterparts, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak called China the biggest challenge of our age to global security and prosperity at the G7 summit.
China poses the biggest challenge of our age to global security and prosperity. They are increasingly authoritarian at home and assertive abroad. And as the G7 have showed, the UK's response is completely aligned with our allies. This is all about de-risking, not decoupling. And with the G7, we are taking steps to prevent China from using economic coercion to interfere in the sovereign affairs of others.
In response, the Foreign Ministry in Beijing accused the United States of being the real coercer of economic relations, citing unilateral sanctions, acts of decoupling, and disrupting supply chains. It stressed that China is committed to a defensive nuclear strategy and is the first nuclear-armed nation to make a pledge on the no first use principle. At least 12 people have died after a stampede at a football stadium in El Salvador. It all began when a large number of fans swarmed the venue northeast of the capital, San Salvador. Many of them were stuck and squeezed at the tunnel. Some were lucky to escape, while others were dragged from the area unconscious and had to receive resuscitation. The match, which featured popular teams Alianza and FAS in the Salvadoran League, had been much anticipated. Officials said some fans bought fake tickets, causing more people to turn up than planned. The game was already in play before it was suspended and called off. On to the weather now. Sunny periods and a few showers tomorrow, and also chance of thunderstorms at night. Temperatures will range between 27 and 32 degrees. Tuesday will likely be wet. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Sunday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Azam Khan. Thanks for watching. Good night.